Okay, let's unpack this. Migration, relocation. I mean, it's fundamental, right? As old as we are.
Absolutely. People moving.
Mm-hmm.
Always have. Searching for security,
A
opportunity.
better place. And it's not just a modern thing. It's woven right into, well, civilization itself.
It really is. And often when we think about migration, the focus is on, leaving.
Yeah,
Displacement, maybe hardship.
right.
But the research we're looking at today, it uses a really interesting source to kind of shift that perspective.
It does. It's a research article analyzing Amish Tripathi's novel, The Immortals of Meluha, super popular book.
Mm-hmm.
And it uses that story to explore these big ideas about human movement, identity, societal change. It's kind of a deep dive into a deep dive.
And the article really emphasizes that migration isn't just about departure. It's about relocating, connecting, cultures merging.
Reinventing communities, even.
Exactly.
So our mission for this deep dive is to explore how this article uses a fictional narrative, a story, to shed light on complex migration theories.
And what that tells us about human history, maybe even our world today.
What's fascinating is how the analysis maps these academic concepts directly onto the plot points of the novel.
It really brings the theories to life.
Okay, so let's set the scene from the novel based on the article's description. We're talking roughly 1900 BC.
Right, the land of Meluha, portrayed as this almost utopian society, highly advanced, supposedly founded by Lord Ram.
Near perfect, but not quite. They have huge problems.
Existential threats, really. Their main river, the Saraswati, it's drying up. That's a massive crisis, environmental, economic.
And on top of that, they're under attack.
Yeah, from the east. The Chandravanshis, and they've allied with the Nagas.
Who are described in the book as sort of outcast, physically different people.
So big problems. King Dasha, the Meluhan ruler, needs a solution.
A bold one. He decides to invite outsiders, immigrants, to help defend Meluha.
He looks north, towards North India, Tibet way. Regions known for their warriors.
And this leads him to the Gunas, a powerful tribe.
Led by their chief, Shiva.
Now, Shiva's reason for accepting, the article points this out, it's a classic pull factor. For the Gunas, it's not just about helping Meluha, it's about finding what they lack at home.
Security, harmony, maybe some affluence, a better life.
Yeah, getting away from what the article calls the pointless violence in their own lands. It's a move towards safety and opportunity.
Definitely. And that fits perfectly with the push factors. The article mentions the violence and instability pushing them away.
So you see that push-pull dynamic right there in this ancient fictional setting.
Yeah, it's laid out quite clearly.
So they make the journey. Long, tough. But the article highlights the description of their arrival.
Yes, in Srinagar, the capital. And the welcome is described as, well, remarkably warm and organized.
The details are interesting, aren't they? Like the immigrant camp outside the city.
Oh, yeah, the article mentions how the novel describes it. Incredibly orderly, clean, paved roads, underground drains even.
Quite a contrast to what Shiva and his tribe were used to. It shows Meluha's advancement, but also their deliberate approach to managing this influx.
Right. And during this arrival phase, we get some key interactions that the article uses, like Shiva meeting Mandi.
Who becomes a close companion. And Shiva tells him, just call me Shiva, not sir.
A small thing, but it signals something about Shiva, doesn't it? Maybe a more egalitarian view compared to the Meluhan hierarchy he's entering, even though he's a chief himself.
But despite the efficiency, the welcome, the, physical comforts, he gets a soft bed.
Which he finds uncomfortable.
Exactly. The article points to the novel showing his psychological state. He feels alien, unfamiliar.
Yeah, the discomfort isn't physical hardship. It's that feeling of displacement, missing the rough floor, the smells, the winds of his homeland.
That's such a key insight into the migrant experience, isn't it? It's not just about moving physically.
No, it's deeply emotional, psychological. Even if you're moving towards something better, that sense of being an outsider is powerful.
And then right after this initial settling in comes the big moment, the pivot point for the whole story.
The Sampas.
Shiva drinks this Meluhan elixir, Samraz, and his throat turns blue.
And this just electrifies Meluha. Ayurvadi, she's the chief physician.
The article mentions her reaction, shock, tears.
And then the proclamation. Shiva is the Neelkanth, the blue-throated one.
Their prophesied savior, central to their belief system. They've been waiting for someone like this to save them from their problem.
Right. And the article connects this Neelkanth figure to real-world Hindu mythology, Shiva, Rudra.
Specifically the story, though it notes it's post-Vedic, of Shiva swallowing the hala hala poison to save the universe, which turned his throat blue.
Yeah, and it mentions older references, too, like in the Yajurveda to Rudra having a blue neck. So the novel's tapping into some very deep cultural roots.
And the article really underscores the significance of how the Meluhans react now. Treating these immigrants, the Gunas, with this sudden respect, honor, even reverence because their leader is the prophesied Nilkanth.
The article argues this is shown as key for building a harmonious, progressive society. The Gunas aren't just mercenaries. Their skills are vital, and now they're led by the savior.
The presence strengthens Meluha.
Exactly. And this whole dynamic, the host society needing specific skills, inviting migrants who have them.
Like the Gunas' warrior abilities.
The article uses this to illustrate how migration can be driven by practical needs, benefiting the host country, leading to more security, stability, maybe prosperity.
The article also loops in other factors influencing migration, like, distance, population size, how developed a society is.
Environmental disasters, the drying Saraswati being a perfect example from the novel.
Right. And the Gunas moving as a whole tribe.
That's a clear example of a migrant network, moving as a group, using those social ties. The article even suggests it touches on ideas like transnational spaces, maintaining connections.
And it mentions cumulative causality, too, how this one migration event, Shiva and the Gunas arriving, triggers wider changes.
Yeah, within Meluha, but also within the Guna tribe itself. It shows how migration ripples outwards, changing both origin and destination societies.
The article gives some historical context, too. Early human migration, basically about survival.
Following herds, finding water, better climate, pure necessity.
And forming tribes, safety in numbers. Agriculture slowed things down a bit. People settled more.
But then security becomes a major driver again. Attacks, rivalries between tribes.
So you get this pattern. First resources, then safety becoming a huge factor reinforcing movement.
Which loops right back to Meluha needing the Gunas because they felt unsafe. It mirrors these ancient patterns.
But Meluha isn't perfect. The novel makes that clear, and the article digs into it. Specifically, the Vikarma system.
Ah, yes, the untouchables. Deemed impure because of past life sins, according to Meluhan belief.
This includes groups like the Nagas with their physical differences, but also individuals in certain situations, like Sati.
The woman Shiva connects with.
And Shiva, being the complete outsider, he sees this system fresh. His reaction is key for the article's point about how migrants can challenge norms.
He questions it, challenges the Vikarma tradition, other customs like the Maika system, the Shuddhakaran ceremony, things Meluhans use to define and separate these groups.
To him, excluding a whole segment of the population just seems unfair. He doesn't have that lifetime of cultural conditioning telling him it's okay.
His outsider perspective lets him see the injustice, as the article puts it.
There's that powerful moment mentioned where Shiva defends Sati during the Agni Pariksha, the fire test.
Yeah, showing his compassion, his willingness to defy their rules, it really sets him apart.
Of course, the main conflict ramps up. The Nagas, the Chandravanshis.
And Shiva, now accepted as the Nilkanth, leads the Meluhans into battle. And they win.
But then comes this huge twist. The article really focuses on the implications here.
After the battle, the Chandravanshi princess reveals something incredible.
They also believe in the Nilkanth.
Right, but not as Meluha's savior, as their savior. Against the Suryavanshis, the Meluhans.
Wow. So the figure Meluha welcomed as their prophesied hero. Their enemies believe he's their hero too.
It just turns everything on its head, doesn't it? It's not a simple good versus evil anymore.
It suggests something deeper, a shared cultural, maybe religious foundation between these warring factions.
Totally. And the article argues this revelation is what pushes Shiva later on, his quest for real understanding.
Visiting the Ram temple in Ayodhya, wrestling with ideas of karma, fate, good, evil.
Trying to grasp this shared belief system underlying the conflict, his journey deepens.
So the article pulls all this together. What does Shiva's migration viewed through the novel actually show us?
Well, it reinforces that groups often move together for security, right? Linked by purpose or ethnicity, like the Gunas and Meluhans uniting.
And that when immigrants are invited and welcomed respectfully, like the Gunas initially, their integration tends to be more progressive.
Yeah.
And they strengthen the host society.
Definitely. It also touches on how information about a destination is often a mix of fact and, well, imagination before people actually get there.
True. And crucially, the relocation changes everyone. The Gunas adapt, become more organized. Shiva's arrival transforms Meluha, and he himself goes from outsider to savior.
It keeps coming back for those fundamental human needs, driving migration, water, climate, food, yes, but especially security. at the macro and micro level. Shiva's tribe is a perfect example.
And the power of belief. The Meluhan faith and the Nilkanth prophecy shapes everything.
But the article argues the real kicker is that shared belief between enemies.
Yeah, that Surivanshis and Chandravanshis, despite the fighting, have this shared cultural consciousness.
And it's Shiva, the immigrant, the outsider, free from the historical baggage.
Who can actually see it? He recognizes the shared faith, the potential for unity beneath the conflict.
And he uses empathy, tries to build bridges, foster tolerance. He starts to see the real evil might be something else entirely.
So the Gunas journey, it's framed as migration driven by compulsion, by necessity, economic, political.
And they largely succeed in integrating, merging, finding a more stable life. Minimal long-term displacement issues, despite Shiva's initial homesickness.
And Shiva himself embodies that ultimate transformation through migration. From immigrant to central figure, driving reform, pushing for harmony.
His status completely shifts. He becomes an equal, essential part of Meluha's progress.
The article even proposes a kind of three-stage model based on the novel's events.
Right, transmission, the invitation, the pull factors, stabilization, merging, Shiva's recognition, achieving security, starting reforms, and concentration, settling, victory, implementing changes, Shiva's solidifying his role.
You know, analyzing a story like this through the article's lens, it really shows how these big themes, migration, integration, culture clash, challenging norms,
Finding common ground.
they aren't just abstract ideas, they're messy, human, transformative experiences, whether it's ancient fiction or today.
It helps you understand the why behind movement, what happens when cultures interact, and how societies get reshaped by outsiders bringing new perspectives.
Even perspectives that force a hard look at a society's own flaws.
Makes you think how relevant these dynamics still are.
Absolutely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it leaves us with a pretty provocative question, doesn't it?
Yeah. What does it really mean when opposing sides, bitter enemies, are waiting for the exact same savior based on the exact same prophecy?
When the symbol that should unite is seen completely differently by those fighting each other, what does that say about narrative, identity?
And those deep cultural ties that might exist even when people are deeply divided.
So this deep dive really shows how a popular novel can be a vehicle for exploring complex theories of human migration, both ancient and modern.
Portraying it as this whole transformative process, physical movement, yes, but also cultural merging, societal change, challenging norms.
And looking at it through the article's analysis helps us see migration maybe less as just leaving and more as expansion, connection, and maybe, just maybe, potential harmony, even when things look really conflicted.